This panel will have first a keynote speech by Mr. Tobby Simon, who is the founder and president of Synergia Foundation. Now, Synergia Foundation is a global think tank which helps to put together a roadmap for the future. How they do it and what they have done in the past, you will hear from Tobby himself. I had a good privilege of meeting Tobby at his office and then seeing that in the magazine that they bring out, which is called Insights, they were able to predict almost 9 out of 10 things before it happened. How does this work? They bring together important stakeholders into a room and they do brainstorming, and then from that brainstorming they bring out a concept note and a forecast of the future. So this think tank is very powerful in the documents that it brings out, and like they used to say, the man who knows the future also owns the future. So it's important that we have a good forecast for the future. May I now request all of you to please settle down and sit down. You will have more opportunity to connect and exchange business card. So maybe Carsten and some of others, Wiebke and so on. Can you all settle down because we will start quickly. Carsten, just sit down somewhere, no problem. Yeah. So we want to start. Time is a master that does not wait for anyone. So either we are catching up with time or keeping up with time. May I request all those in the coffee area to bring your coffee cups and come to the tables. You will really enjoy this session, mark my word for it. And I'm sure that many of you will go back and see the live stream. To those who didn't come yesterday, please note that at the website www.tiasummit.com, you find a button that says watch live stream. You can click on it and you can see today's live stream of proceedings of the session. We are happy that yesterday we had about 450 online viewers, and today by the end of the day we will see how many people have joined us online. So thank you all once again, and without much ado, I would like to invite Mr. Tobby Simon, the founder and president of Synergia Foundation, to give us the keynote speech of day 2. Following him will be Sanjeev from Karnataka Digital Economy Mission. He has some very digital and what Karnataka can do. May I also request those at the back, please come and sit down because we can see you from here. It doesn't, encourage the speaker. Let's be respectful. Thank you very much, and over to Tobby. Please clap a little louder. Huh? It's a good exercise. Thank you.
This is forward, no? This one. Yeah. White. Yeah. Morning, everybody. Let me first thank Jose for giving me this opportunity to speak to, I know, is a very distinguished and august audience. So I have about 18 to 20 minutes to speak. I'll try to be as brief as possible. So let me start with this one screenshot. How many of you are able to know, tell me what this means? Which language? Mandarin. Good. What does this mean? So if anybody, Jacob was talking about a magazine that we publish. This is Insights. It's an expensive magazine that we publish, strategic in nature. But whoever answers this, we will give 1 whole year's edition of this free. But you can't look at the net and find out. Huh? So I will not give you more than 10 seconds to do this. Okay? Who said that? Okay, so you get one book. It is not exactly the same, but it means Weiji. Anyway, you got something right. It means crisis. Who's the crisis person? So you also will get one. Okay? It means crisis. But this is a Chinese word, Weiji, for crisis. And it actually comprises of 2 syllables. Okay? And it is interesting. The first part means danger. And the second part, it's Weiji, means opportunity. And exactly if you look at the etymology, it is change point. So look at a word in which the conjecture of a word in Chinese is Weiji, which means danger and opportunity, which means you convert danger into opportunity. That is how you try to manage a crisis. Now, I'm just putting out a context for you. Okay? You can just read it yourself. We are barely into 2 decades of the second millennia. The world at large and business in particular are confronted with an uncertain future. I have put 4 points. The Arctic ice is melting because that's where you will find the most dangerous viruses that are going to come out beyond the flooding. A nuclear Armageddon is no longer just a war game scenario. I'm just playing it out to Ukraine. If Russia is to face defeat, if they have to pull out of Ukraine, we are reasonably sure that they will trigger a small nuclear explosion. Deadly viruses and bacteria are evolving faster, not a threat. Yesterday we had the New York governor issuing an emergency warning in the city for polio, which is a very frightening disease, especially for those countries that have had their citizens have not taken the polio vaccine. And finally, the internet has made the world smaller, but more vulnerable with all your threats to your critical infrastructure. You don't have to fight a war, you just have to unplug the internet at some point. So by all accounts, the future looks increasingly uncertain and interesting times. So what is this word? Somebody uses this word, interesting times. Who uses that most? The popular thing, may you live in interesting times. Who says that? Okay. Actually, it is the Chinese who use this expression. And when the Chinese use this expression, may you live in interesting times, it means may you lived in cursed times. Because interesting times is not what people look for. People look for uninteresting times where there is no, asymmetry in the way they live. Okay? Now let me go further. Look at this map. Okay? Today we are going to speak more about the unknown and the predictable surprises, more like an oxymoron. And the reason is, how do you build the point that we are trying to do is, how do you build a smarter future? If you're able to read what is in front of you reasonably well, you're more prepared. So it's always helpful to tee off well in a fair way. Most of you play golf, and you know that your handicap becomes better if you have a good caddy to help you understand the lie of the land, or to navigate you when you go into the rough or the bunker. I'm sure many of you play understand what I have told. It's also very similar to being in a boxing ring, because it's going to be that one left-hand punch, not the right-hand one. We always punch with the right hand, but it is going to be the one left-hand one that is going to knock you down. Now, if you look at the complexities that I have shown there, it is not easy for someone who has had a normal education to understand this. Because in most of what we have learned in our schools and the best of engineering colleges, it's linear thinking. But today the world has to manage 2 things, linear and spatial. And that's not something that we are taught. Okay? Let me tell you why it might be a helpful thing to listen to what we are discussing now. Look at this. The average shelf life of a Fortune 500 company is now presumed to be less than 8 years. This is an MIT study that came out a few days ago. The half-life of a startup is less than 4 years. Okay, so I'm just showing you a picture of supposed to be one of the smartest startups, raised a lot of money. I think it's about 4 years that he has been in limelight, and you're seeing the effect of half-life. The third, the businesses that we are doing, except that you're typing or working on the computer, any other businesses that you're going to do now is fraught and replete with a lot of risk. And the business has one fundamental difference. The underbelly of your business now is geopolitics and security. It was not like that in the past. Anything that you do. Let me give you a recent example, okay, which you are all very familiar with. It's the semiconductor industry. Okay, and this is the fundamental building block to our world now. It's the new oil of the world. I'm sure you know that whoever is working here in anything, any industry, finance, banking, marketing, retail, they all have to depend on the chip. It is the nano chip that is going to drive your business and help you stay either competitive or relevant. We can extend this to aerospace, pharmaceuticals, telecommunications, satellites, strategic technologies, automobile, and more. Tell me one industry where you are not going to use your telephones, your mobile, everything is this. I'm sure that you will agree that this industry is now is one whose remit, at least for the next 24 months, will be entirely geopolitics and security. It is not going to be demand and supply. It is not going to be market forces. It was the same when you had oil. In the 70s, when you remember oil, it was geopolitics. It stabilized. So in 24 to 36 months, you are going to see that you are going to work in an industry where you have no control. Okay? Those who can imbibe this better and are able to minimize their supply chain risk will be able to handle this better. Now, let me put a couple of caveats by going back to the other map. Most business leaders who have gone to the best business or engineering schools face a lot of headwind trying to understand this narrative. Then they try to build their own conjectures, your own things, which may become, at times, illusions. I must confess and say that the human mind that we have is not entirely a perfect instrument. A lot of research has demonstrated that we process information subject to a multiplicity of glitches. And scholars around the world call it cognitive biases or personal biases that can lead us to ignore or underestimate impending disasters. Even the most difficult to manage is the self-serving interest that we have. Now let us illustrate this, just a few examples. The recent floods in Bangalore. It's not something new. But just imagine what would happen if the home of the richest person in Bangalore is inundated with water. And you have the fear that every year this is a risk. Now, this is one part. And the second part is you have a risk that in the same year you would have 1 or 2 months where there is drought. You find it difficult to get water. So if you have to balance between these two, you don't know what to do. Okay? You look at the viruses which have come now in New York, polio. It would honestly strip that city if they are not able to contain it very fast, because polio is one of the most dangerous viruses. It cripples you for life. Just imagine all of you are walking on 3 and 4 legs. Okay? You can't imagine. And this is one of the most powerful, most wealthiest city in the world. So these viruses which come, you have no control on. Okay? Look at the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I mean, everybody is red flagging it from 2014. And now you see the impact of this Russia-Ukraine conflict, biggest in Europe. Okay? Inflation is about 14-15% in London. Energy prices have gone from about an average home billing of about £1,200 to £4,000. They can't pay. Look at how nations which were at the highest, they're just falling down. And now the challenges for countries in Europe, I'm sure many of you are sitting, to brace the winter is going to be so significant. Now, all this is because of something that has happened in Ukraine. Between two countries, somebody else goes and fights the war, moral or not, I'm not there to judge, but look at the consequence of this. And how do you cap and contain it? It's going to be extremely difficult. So let me also mention about 3 things that we see that is likely to happen in the future. One is managing the unknown, which we spoke about. There are 3 aspects to this which we feel you have to keep in mind. One is what we popularly call the black swan event. This is basically the impact of the highly improbable, which is used more as a metaphor. But we know that standard forecasting tools presage them and thus lull us into a false sense of security. Oh, it won't happen. Okay? There are, however, 2 additional metaphors that I would like to share that you might want to consider. One is the black jellyfish, and the second is the black elephant. The black jellyfish refers to issues that are well known to us and are comprehensible, but turn out to be complex and uncertain in the long run, with a long tail and a nasty sting. The black elephant represents a cross-section between the black swan and the black jellyfish. And it's the elephant in the room where the challenges are visible to everyone, but no one feels the need to react to this. Okay? Now, in other words, they signify the blind spots that we have that arise due to our cognitive biasness, powerful institutional forces that are working around us, short-sightedness, and failure to read signals. Now, leading, how do you lead and create this smarter future, which is about leadership? And how do you do leadership during uncertain times? It's the most difficult thing. Apart from geopolitics, which I mentioned and alluded to, there are 3 other factors that we have to be mindful of. One is xenophobia. People are going to be more and more xenophobic, and you would see that we are unwelcome in many countries, and they are unwelcome in our country. This is how it is going to be. And the fracturing of the internet, maybe in the next 5 years, has already happened. Countries are already siloing their internet because they don't want others to access their markets, has already started. Second is the need for businesses to make sure that when you're building businesses, that you're able to create a certain interdependency, that you are not working on your own. You're creating platforms where you work with others, and the more you are able to work with others, let us assume it is the aerospace industry. I always take that. We have had vendors here who try to supply to companies only nuts and bolts. They are displaced very fast. We have companies that are able to supply more critical parts which web into the national security frame of their country. They are very difficult to displace. So you really need to know that you are not at the lower end of the value chain for them, because if you are in a market where there are disruptions, this will be the last, you will be the first one to be shown the exit door. Finally, for us, what is most important is when you are leading is strategic intelligence. Today, most of intelligence that we gather is open source. And probably companies, individuals, people have the ability to have an intelligence apparatus that is as powerful as many small nations. We never know that, and because of which we create more and more blind spots, We believe what is there in the WhatsApp messages that you get. You don't collect proprietary intelligence for your work, and you don't know what is important for you. And that is the reason why many of us end up this. Now, is this something that is only, and I will conclude, is this something that is only concerning small companies? No. The first one who had said this was Jack Welch, okay? When he made the big mistake in the merger between Honeywell and GE. He read the European laws wrongly or took it for granted. The second one is, these are companies that were priced. Otherwise, Honeywell should have been part of GE. Lost the opportunity. The second is Greenpeace versus Shell. Greenpeace almost lost a huge value of the company because they bungled up with Greenpeace they call it the SPAR incident. If you Google, you will find it. It's something to do with climate change. Okay, SPAR was something they wanted to discontinue, but Greenpeace said that while you discontinue, there is going to be radioactive material inside this. Small quantities, Shell ignored, it became a global thing. Third, Monsanto chief Roberto Shapiro, in his enthusiasm to say that GMO, genetically modified crops, are the best, went into problem. He finally had to sell Monsanto's business to Pharmacia Upjohn, more as a pharmaceutical business, and he got zero value for his agricultural business. So these are not things that I am talking about small companies. I'm just trying to say that at the end of it, the only thing I would leave with is one thing: you are never too old to be surprised. A quote which I always value and consider from Jack Welch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tobby, for that wonderful session.